let's dive into what's going on with the Phillies. Kevin Cooney, longtime baseball writer, covers the Phillies with Philly Voice, and you can follow him on Twitter at Kevin Cooney, where, Kevin, we were just talking yesterday. We had a big conversation, and today we were just kind of getting back into it. It feels that there is some sort of disconnect or lack of interest or something with this Phillies team that is just missing, that getting a star or multiple stars was supposed to fix, and yet their record right now is worse than it was at this time last year. And the excuse was, I don't believe in them. They don't really have stars. I don't have anybody that I can believe in. Wasn't that supposed to be fixed? What's going on with this team right now? It seems that there's a disconnect between the fans and the Phillies.
First of all, guys, I'm jealous that you're at some place where you can actually see the beach and anything but more thunderstorms rolling through. So, like we're getting up here. But I think the disconnect basically it's simple. It's a matter of this team is underachieving. And I think that people are frustrated. I think people look at the offensive numbers they're putting up or not putting up. The fact that they're in the bottom third of the National League in most offensive categories that matter, home runs, on base percentage, OPS, average, all that. You look at that just drains the life out of people. And when you combine that with a bullpen that's leaky and a starting rotation that is only 4/5, major league level, you have a problem. And I think people now see the flaws in that, and then you throw the manager, some of the manager's antics in the last week or so. It's a big problem for this organization.
Yeah, and, last year this was a team that I think they were 40-33 at this point, or 40-32 or something like that. They were about the same, but a little bit better than they are right now, and it was, they just don't have the depth. I mean, they went out and got three, Real Muto, Segura, Harper. I mean, they really added to, I feel, a spot that most people just didn't believe in this team because they couldn't score or the offense wasn't very exciting. They went and got three players, so how do you quantify them being where they are in those categories with what they upgraded with those guys? I mean, does that fall on somebody?
Mike, I'll tell you what. The most important player that they got that you didn't mention there, and the Phillies are now realizing it, was Andrew McCutchen. And Andrew McCutchen's presence at the top of the lineup as a leadoff hitter, being able to set the deck, being able to take walks, being able to generate something in front of Segura and Harper and having them fit in the right parts of the lineup. Ever since McCutchen has left this lineup, it has been deadly dull. And you could tell that guys are pressing. You can tell guys are out of whack in where they're hitting in the lineup. I think also if you look at it, they're just, for everything that they did last year, okay? That point of the season that you're talking about last year, they went through pretty much the cupcakes of the National League at that point. The Reds were in there, and I think the Pirates and all that. Here you're going through kind of the teeth of the schedule. You had the Cubs and the Brewers. You played okay against them, and then you went to the Dodgers and got, whacked around. And then you go to Atlanta, and obviously there was a homestand in between, but go to Atlanta and you face Arizona, and now Washington looks like they have life. That's what's so depressing about this for the Phillies. They've seen the measuring stick, and they're not close to measuring up right now.
Kev, it's Kincaid from Crossing Broad. What up, man?
Hey Kev, how are you?
So let's talk about this Gene Segura mess, and I think the best way to approach it was, actually you had a pretty good tweet this morning kind of summarizing the whole thing as, by the way, the Segura case isn't about running hard anymore. It's about the perception that either Kapler isn't being listened to or isn't making guys accountable. In either case, it isn't good. So talk to me about that.
Well, I mean, look, Segura's wrong. And Segura, a lot happened a couple weeks ago after the McCutchen injury. And you can make an argument, all right, he slipped out of the box. He kind of, it's a normal pop-up the second. Guys don't bust on normal pop-ups the second. That was a little more forgivable, okay? What happened last night when you're facing Scherzer, and especially after you've been called in, and your manager, whether you believe that the whole confrontation on radio with Kapler and Angelo Cataldi was right, the manager at least took a bullet for you there. He stood up for you. He defended you. And then less than 2 weeks later, You go out and do that on a fly ball. That's not a routine pop-up. That's a ball he should have busted out of the box on. He didn't slip this time. He's got to bust it out. And so, to me, it either shows either a lack of respect within the clubhouse for whatever Kapler says, and that's why it's going to be fascinating to see whenever this lineup comes out for tonight, if Segura is in it. Because I think Kapler has to kind of take the high road here, or Kapler has to take the road of I got to sit him down, just to send a message to the rest of the clubhouse. Either he's not being listened to, or the fact that that he's not going to crack down. He has to make a move here tonight and put Segura on the bench, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. Because you could be a player's coach, but if you get to the point where like you said, you go out and you put your butt on the line and you defend the guy on the radio, and he responds with that. I mean, is he at the risk of losing other people? Quote unquote. I feel like we abuse the term losing the locker room, but surely you got to draw a line somewhere. If you're going to go defend a guy and he's going to respond with that, then you have to stand up for yourself as a manager at some point, right?
Kev, I think one of the problems that Gabe Kapler has had connecting with Philadelphia, and there's a lot of them, okay? I mean, but I think one of the problems is that people view he is still a player just sitting in a manager's chair, that he wants to be one of the guys, okay? There's a certain point where that divorce has to take place. Every player who turns into a manager has that point where he has to stand up and exert his authority. At this point, this is where it has to be for Gabe Kapler. If Gabe Kapler is going to be the manager here long term, and look, that's going to depend on whether they're able to turn this around or not this season. If Gabe Kapler is going to be a manager long term, he has to show right now that he has that in his constitution to be able to go and call guys out. And I don't think he's done that yet.
Kevin Cooney's with us, talking a little Phillies. Let me ask you your opinion on this, Kevin. The Kapler, the manager, as a manager, there's been a lot of baseball guys who have said, much like Mickey Callaway and other guys who are younger or inexperienced managers, that these guys really aren't the managers, that they're just doing what they're told from above. Like, in other words, the analytics say, play this guy at third base today. All right, that's who will play at third base today. Like, is Kapler doing a average job, a bad job, a good job? I mean, or do you look at it as, we shouldn't put as much blame on Kapler. That's just baseball today. They're just strictly going off of what the data tells them.
This is going to be a little bit cop-out answer. I think it's a little bit of both, okay? The GM has more power today on the everyday lineup than he's ever had in the history of the game, okay? And the Phillies have increased their analytics to the point where you just see that, every time, every move that they make every offseason is geared towards analytics, okay? I don't blame Kapler for them struggling. The injuries have been enormous, okay? You keep losing members of your bullpen, it seems like, on a nightly basis. The McCutchen injury really hurt. The Herrera situation is nothing that you can fault a manager, or for that matter, a general manager over, because it's the player's individual conduct outside the ballpark that has caused that. So to me, some of the criticism of Kapler is not justified, because I don't think he's dealing with a full deck right now. But other parts of it, look, the Cole Irvin thing yesterday, that's on the manager. There's nothing there. And I saw Scott Lauber on Twitter kind of speculate whether Kapler was trying to send a message upstairs to Matt Klentak and everything of, look, I need more help in the bullpen. That's not the time or place to do it. Not in a 3-1 game in Washington when you're struggling and you're basically trying to put the Nationals on the trading block for the rest of the year. That's not the spot to go do that. And those are the type of things that will kill a manager when it comes down to it.
Well, Kevin, his answer of, well, if the game was tied or we're in the lead, we'll go to Alvarez. But since we're losing, we go to Cole Irvin there. I mean, it's almost like this, the data tells you, well, we're down 3-1 in the seventh. We can't win this game, so we're just going to go with the lesser of two evils in this spot and go with Cole Irvin, a guy with an ERA around 8, as opposed to a guy who could maybe keep us in this game and give us a couple cracks at it to come back and win this game. I feel like that mentality creeps in a lot with this team. Is the numbers say we're not coming back in the seventh inning of a 3-1 game.
It's the eighth inning of a 3-1 game, and granted, they probably would have seen Doolittle in the ninth, okay? And with the way the offense is going, is it maybe a 25% chance that they could come back and tie the game or win? Okay. But the idea is it's still 20 to 25%. You don't raise the white flag in that game, even if it is the first game of a doubleheader. That's a game, especially knowing that you're getting Scherzer in game 2. You've got to go and play for that moment right there. I just think he sat back on it, and those are the type of situations. Look, his main flaws are it doesn't feel like he has a sense on game feel, okay? The idea of how important that game in Sunday in Atlanta was, that he decided to hold Arrieta back. And look, it worked out. Arrieta pitched well last night. But the idea of that game in Atlanta against a team directly in front of you was pretty important for that team, and instead he went bullpen by committee, and he ended up starting Velasquez. Some of the stuff is not his fault. It's not his fault he stuck with Vince Velasquez as the starting pitcher. But at the same time, you have to handle the situation better. And then you can't really tell the media and everything in the terms he does that everything is fine when it's pretty clear that the ship is sinking.
Kev, let me ask you about Bryce Harper. He's hitting 243, 360 on base percentage, OPS of 817. I think people are probably not totally thrilled with that. People are probably expecting more. But when you go back and look at his Washington numbers, he was an all-star in 2016 with 814 OPS, hitting 243. He's got some similar kind of clunker, weird numbers in here. I mean, is he underwhelmed? Is this kind of what he is? Do we expect more just because of the contract? Where do you kind of see him right now?
Kevin, I've been saying this all along when people went Harper. And look, the Harper signing is fine. I don't have but the problem that I don't think people understood, and it's strange because Harper's within the division. You figure people would figure this out more.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper's this type of player. This is what Bryce Harper is. You can look down, and Kev, I know you looked at this, I think, back last month. He has great Aprils. He has awful Mays. His Junes are mediocre usually, and then he really gets going in the second half. So if that's the case, there's nothing different from what Bryce Harper has done in the past to what he's doing this year. I think people just see the price tag and naturally assumed, the guy who signs for the biggest price tag is always going to get the most blame when a team underachieves. Do I think Bryce Harper's been great? No, I think he's been what he's been. But there's other flaws with this team. Look, third base is as big a flaw as anything they have on the roster, and people don't want to, it's not a sexy thing to go rip the fact that they don't have a working third baseman, really, at this point. So
that's a domino effect of everything, though. Like Herrera having his issue, that forced Kingery have to play out there, right? I mean, it's just been a complete domino effect. But I mean, it doesn't Clint. I mean, I know he went out and got bruised to try to be, and then McCutchen got hurt. So I mean, but he's almost out of bullets to even try to keep improving this team.
Yeah, and that's the scary part, And look, up until McCutchen got hurt, you could look and say, all right, maybe one starting pitcher. Maybe you get Will Smith out of San Francisco as a reliever, and then you can make a run. Well, now without McCutchen, and now you're shifting Kingery around, and you're doing everything you had to do, just to try to stay afloat. And your minor league system, which is one of the great, I think, untold stories here, the minor league system is pretty bare right now. Their drafting and development has just not worked to the level I think that they could have hoped for, given all the high draft picks they've had over the last decade. It's a problem. It's a big problem for them, and I don't know if there's a move they can make that's going to be a silver bullet for this going forward this year.
Yeah, Kevin Kincaid's with me. Kevin Cooney's on the phone. We're talking about the Phillies, who if Clintek does have bullets for one thing, is there something that supersedes everything at this point? Is it that last starting pitching spot? Is it the bullpen situation, which I guess they're waiting for guys to get healthy so they can try to fix that? Is it a third baseman? Is it a center fielder? I mean, if he's got one move left in him, which is the top of the list?
I think it has to be a fifth starter. I mean, unless you're going to bring Medina up, which I don't see them doing. I mean, for him to take the jump from Redding, it's not in this organization's, and Mike, you and I years ago have talked about this. It's not in their DNA. They're not a team that brings somebody from Reading and appoints them a savior before they believe that they're ready to come up at the last possible minute. I just believe that if they're going to make a move, it has to be on a starting pitcher for the one spot that they're looking at right now. But they can only hope that maybe Quinn can settle in the center field. Maybe they can move Kingery to third base. Maybe that's their best option. But counting on Roman Quinn to stay healthy is a risky maneuver as well, as we've all learned.
Well, this just out. The lineup is out, Kevin, and the tweet from the Phillies says. The Phillies tweet says, "Let's get weird." You ready for this?
Go ahead.
Harper leading off, Hoskins batting second, Bruce hitting third, Real Muto hitting fourth, Segura hitting fifth, Kingery hitting sixth, Hernandez seventh, a Franco sighting. He is in the 8-hole tonight for Pivetta. So let's get weird. What do you think of that lineup?
It sounds like somebody picked it out of a hat, to be honest. And some managers have done that in the past. Look, Harper going to the leadoff spot, he's obviously in that spot before. The fact that Segura's playing, it baffles me. I'm just absolutely baffled that they went back to Gene Segura today. I really am. And let's put it this way. When you do this kind of lineup and you're going to put Gene Segura in it, you better win the night then, because otherwise you're going to hear holy hell tomorrow.
Well, and you mentioned when McCutchen went out, they really, and let's be honest, McCutchen isn't even a true leadoff hitter. They just were using him there, and he was kind of excelling. But once he's gone out, they really don't have a great option. They tried Hernandez because he hit there last year, but he didn't cut it, so they moved him. There were people talking about Kingery. Kingery, it's weird because there was like, well, he was hitting well in the 6-hole. Why move him? Well, then he was hitting third yesterday, so the manager admits that he's my best hitter. I'll put him in the 3-hole. Well, on today, he bounces him back to 6. And it seems that this is almost going back to last year where he was just moving guys every day of the week. They didn't have a spot in the order. It almost seems that he's trickling back to that.
Well, and it's funny, and Kevin knows this from writing. I was planning on doing a Scott Kingery piece for this week before everything that happened. So the one thing I asked Kapler about it last week is how nervous are you about moving Kingery around? Because last year Kingery was, one of the reasons I think Kingery struggled last year was the fact that he moved so much, both in lineup position and in the field. And he goes, we're conscious of it and everything, and you don't want to just move somebody for the sake of moving. He goes, but there's also a point where they've proven that they can move up in the lineup. Scott Kingery is going to cool down at something. The thing is that some stability whenever he does cool down, that he still continues to play every day and play in a spot in the lineup that realistically fits where he is as a hitter.
All right, Phillies tonight, Washington, trying to finish this series off, and it's been a tough couple of weeks for them, the Phillies. Harper leads off. We'll dive more into it. Kevin Cooney joining us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, talking a little Phillies with us. Thank you, Kevin.
No problem, Mike.